Lecture 4, Production Curves. Okay, this lecture is probably some of the most difficult material in the course. So I'm going to give a little hint on how to study the material before we get started. We're going to be using the content of previous lectures to develop diagrams for curves that demonstrate the productivity of adding more variable inputs in order to increase output. In this part of the lecture, we're only going to be looking at that in the short run. In particular, we're going to be applying the law of diminishing returns, which again is only a short run concept. So the graphs in this lecture are drawn with very specific shapes and they're related to each other. So you should pay attention to those shapes and how they relate to our theoretical concepts. After this lecture, there will be a short lecture where you work out numerical examples as well, and you'll be considered responsible for both of those. Okay, so let's get started now. Production functions. In the video that you watched earlier in this week's lectures, you were introduced to the concept of a production function, which is a way of describing the total product that's produced by using inputs, both fixed and variables. And the production function usually has the form total production equals some function, some mathematical function of the variable inputs and the fixed inputs. In this lecture, we're going to look at productivity in two levels. We're going to take our marginal product of the variable inputs, that is the increase in production by increasing the level of the variable inputs by 1 unit, where we also have a mathematical formula. Marginal product equals the change in output divided by the change in the number of variable inputs. Another way we're going to look at production, in addition to total product and marginal product, is something called average product of the variable inputs, where we take the total product and divide it by the full amount of the variable inputs. Make sure you know the difference between these two formulas. Marginal product is the change in output divided by the change in the inputs. Average product is the total output divided by the amount of the variable inputs. Okay. Now here's the relationship between marginal product and total product. I'm just going to read this to you now, and then we'll look at a diagram which should make it clearer. When marginal product is increasing, total product is also increasing, and it is increasing at an increasing rate. That means the slope is getting steeper. Every unit of the variable input we use adds to the total amount of production, and it adds more than the previous unit did. When marginal product is decreasing, the rate of increase in total product decreases. That is, the slope starts to decrease. But total product is still increasing, though at a slower rate, as long as marginal product is positive. Every unit of the variable input we use adds to total production and adds less than the previous unit did. Sorry, there's a typo there. When marginal product is negative, total product decreases. I know that's a lot of words. I think it'll be clearer when we look at the pictures. Okay, first look at the graph down at the bottom. That's a marginal product curve. And notice that it demonstrates our law of decreasing return. We have some area of use of the input, which in this case we're going to call labor as our variable input, where the marginal product is increasing. That's what, like when we added that second worker behind the Subway sandwich counter. But then if we add the second and third worker behind that counter, notice that we still have a positive marginal product, but it's decreasing now. So the second worker adds less than the first worker did, and the third worker adds less than the second worker did. And then eventually we get down to that fifth worker who's just getting in everyone's way and contributes nothing, or maybe even lowers productivity. Okay, so that's our marginal product curve. Here's how it relates to total product. Notice that when marginal product is increasing, total product's getting steeper. When marginal product peaks, total product starts to increase, but at a decreasing rate. And as marginal product is still positive, it's still contributing to total product, but at a lower rate. Total product as a function of labor input reaches its peak when marginal product is zero. That is, at that point, you can't add any more workers and get more production. And if marginal product gets into the negative region, then total product starts decreasing. Make sure you study this diagram. Go back and read the previous slide and have it out at the same time as this picture and see how the description relates to the pictures, to the graphs that we've drawn here. Okay, now let's look at the relationship between marginal product and average product. When marginal product is greater than average product is increasing. When marginal product is less than average product is decreasing. And when marginal product equals average product, it does so at the maximum average product. That is, the marginal product curve passes through the average product curve at the maximum of the average product curve. Again, these are a lot of words. Let's look at the pictures. Here's marginal product. Once again, we're showing our law of decreasing returns. Marginal product may increase for a while, but eventually it starts decreasing. And here's our average product curve. When marginal product is greater than average product is increasing. When marginal product is less than average product is decreasing. And in between those two areas, marginal product passes through the maximum of the average product curve. Now, here's an example which I think can make that relationship between marginal product and average product a little bit more intuitive. Think about the average score on an exam. Some courses actually curve exams, so you would worry about that a lot in one of those courses. I don't do that, but in other classes, instructors do, so you have to keep track of what the average score is on an exam. Suppose a new student transfers into the class. That's the marginal student, remember, the last student to enter the class. And the score that that student gets is the marginal exam score. If that student gets a score on the exam that is lower than the average for everyone else in the class, that is, the marginal score is less than the average score, the class average on the exam will fall. Basically, that student is bringing down the class average. But if that student has a score that's above the average of the rest of the students, that is, the marginal score is greater than the average score, then the class average on the exam will increase. That student is going to bring up the average in the class, and it's going to make life harder for the rest of you if you are in one of those classes where there's a curve on the exams and you have to worry about what the average is. So that's the intuition behind what happens with these diagrams. Marginal product is greater than average product is increasing. When marginal product is less than average product is decreasing, and the marginal product curve passes through the maximum of the average product curve. Okay, so here's a diagram that brings all three of those different curves together. Again, let's start with the marginal product curve right here. It increases, and then it starts decreasing. And notice this is its maximum, so that's where the total product curve stops having an increasing slope and has a decreasing slope. When marginal product is zero, total product reaches its peak. Marginal product is greater than average product so average product is increasing. And when it's less than average product is decreasing. And notice I've marked the sort of turning points here on the diagram. Make sure you understand the relationship between total, average, and marginal product in terms of these diagrams. We're going to use similar graphs in part 2 of this week's lectures, costs. So if you figure it out at this level of the course, it's going to make the rest of the class a lot easier for you.